Good evening, and welcome back to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight, I have a very special guest and a friend from right up the road, actually, John Fuquay. He's from Lillington, North Carolina. And John actually is a Bigfooter. He goes out locally. We're kind of all in the same circle. He's a really, really good person. And one thing I really love about John is he's a very humble person. And before we get started, he said something to me that kind of stuck with me the other day when we were talking about coming on the show. He says, Victoria, I'm not an A-lister. I really don't have a lot to offer. And the thing is, he said he used a reference, and I'm going to have him tell the story because I can't convey the episode that he was talking about. But it's very important. But what I told him, I said, John, there is no A-listers in Bigfoot. We are all equally as important to the community. We all contribute to it equally. There are some people that are on a lot of programs, and they may have their own podcast, or you might see them on an episode on Discovery Channel or the History Channel or whatever, but they contribute no more than we all contribute to it. We are all equally as important in this community. We all have something to offer, and that's you included, and me, because I don't know a lot. But you told me about an episode of Johnny Carson and the brown shoes.
Right.
And I think that's really important to the people out there that feel like their stories are not enough.
Well, sure. Growing up in the 70s, Johnny Carson was a big part of our lives. And, they would bring his show to prime time every so often, maybe 2 or 3 times every few years with an anniversary show, as you know. And this particular clip they would play that was, I guess, a perennial type thing. It was an old clip of a show from 1969 with Bob Hope and an array of other stars who were popular at that time. And so Johnny introduces a humorist named George Gobel, very, very funny gentleman. He used to be on Dean Martin's program. Well, instead of George Gobel coming out, here comes Dean Martin with his drink and his cigarette, and the banter goes back and forth between Johnny and Bob and all that. Then finally, George just comes out unannounced, and he sits down beside Johnny and he says, well, I'm glad you had me on tonight, Johnny, because up to now, well, I tell you, without me, your show would have been nothing tonight. And everybody laughs, and then he started to elaborate a little more, and he said, yeah, about the thing about coming on last. Well, have you ever had the feeling that the whole world is a tuxedo and you're a pair of brown shoes? And even Dean Martin, Bob Hope, Johnny just erupted in laughter. And that, I think that's, I borrowed from that to apply that to this, to tonight, really, because I feel really unworthy of being here. But it's a great pleasure to be here, Victoria, and I thank you. You're very kind. It's an honor and privilege, and so thank you. That's about it. I'm done. Okay. Did I ever? Oh, I cannot hear you, Miss V. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I muted because Swamp Kitty was back there having an episode.
Okay.
I said, brown shoes make the world go around.
There you are.
We need a little bit more brown shoes out there. So we all have something to contribute.
Yes.
And I would rather be that, if I'm not mistaken, the gentleman that you were speaking of, wasn't he a fighter pilot and a war hero?
Oh, George Gobel was, yes, indeed. Very
well, there you go.
Service to our nation. Yes, ma'am. He was.
And yeah, so I'll take the fighter pilot and brown shoes any
there
day.
You are. There you go.
So you are from Lillington, and your wife just had a milestone in her life. Yes. Can we go into that before we do the Bigfoot stuff? Because I'm really proud of her.
Oh, thank you, Victoria. Bless you. Yeah, she had been a certified dental assistant for better than 20 years and just kind of burned out with that. And so the idea came to her to start a cleaning service. And that's what she did in February. And it's really starting to gain traction these few months later. So
we're going to put, if you're in the North Carolina area, Lillington, she kind of goes around that hub. We'll have the description and her business description and her business information and the description of the show. If you're in North Carolina and you know, I need someone that'll do a good job for you, you know, it would be great if you'd reach out to her.
And thank you. And she will. She has the highest standards, just a perfectionist. But yes, ma'am, she'll go above your expectations. And she's already proven that. So.
And she's got a beautiful smile to go with that hard work.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So let's go down that road, John. What got you into it?
Okay. Well, you stated I'm from Lillington. Actually, I was born and raised in Raleigh. I reside in Lillington now. You know, I may have mentioned in other places, but for you, I'll just give you a brief background of my family history, if that's all right for a moment.
Absolutely.
Oh, sure. Well, I was born and raised in Raleigh, and let's see, so long ago I can't even remember the story, it seems like, but to a single parent family, basically. My father left right after I was born, and I have a half sister, older half sister from a previous marriage my mother had just out of high school. Then that didn't last long. Then she met my father, and after I was born, he took off. So I never knew him, but he had the name Fuquay, and there are ancestral ties to Fuquay Varina. Well, our family unit for a number of years was myself, my sister, my mother, and my maternal grandmother and grandfather, because after this second failed marriage, she took my sister and myself in tow and went back to her parents, swore never to leave again. And that's how I came to live in Raleigh. Let's see. And then my grandfather died of lung cancer when I was 6 years old, 1970. Dating myself, that's all right. And so that was our family structure throughout just about the entire decade of the 70s. And she met the man who would become her third husband and my stepfather in 77. And they married in 81. She moved out, lived with my stepfather. My sister stayed on at my home place for another year. And then she kind of came of age and then moved out on her own. And so that was it. I lived with my grandmother right up until the time of her passing in 1999. Took a few years to restore our old home place. Did a lot of it myself, and then decided it was marketable and put it on the market. And we got a few bites the next day. This would have been early 2001. And we sold it, and I found a nice home in Fuquay Varina because I had to live somewhere. So we sold the home and purchased the small home. Fuquay was just kind of still up and coming at that time, and moved in probably June or July, maybe May of that year. Well, I hadn't been to Raven Rock since the late 70s. Only went one time, right? And I remembered Raven Rock. So I had a little free time one afternoon, and I got my fishing gear, headed to Raven Rock. At that time, Raven Rock was not very well known. And I hate to say a dot on the map, but that may not be proper, but it simply wasn't well known. It was well off the beaten path, you know. And took my gear, parked in the lot, not many visitors there, started down one of those trails. And Matt, he knows, if he's watching, he knows what trail I'm talking about. And was going to go down to the river and fish off the banks. Well, there's a creek that runs through that particular area of the park. And making my way down, just thinking nothing about it, but maybe hopefully I'll catch a big catfish. I was hoping to do that. Right. And so I started hearing, whoa. So, well, I thought, well, that's strange. Very loud, very guttural, very deep, bassy stuff. Hmm. Well, I know there's another trail on the other side of this creek. And then closer to where I was at that time, was I was proceeded down that trail to the river edge, something answered back. Anyway,
Wow.
yeah. So I thought, well, it must be hikers over there. Do they speak Dutch or something? Like, what is? Yeah, it's all right. Didn't think a thing of that about that. I'm like a lot of your guests. Patty, my first exposure, Legend of Boggy Creek. I went to all the movies in the 70s, grew out of it, lost interest, grew up, right? So, not really, but I grew out of it. But I never doubted the existence of Sasquatch. Only I assumed if Sasquatch was in North Carolina, it would have to be confined to Appalachia and the Blue Ridge Mountains and probably just migrating through. So after that experience, and it did not scare me because I did not associate it with the Sasquatch at the time. So, but it stayed in the back of my mind. It was so intriguing, and the loudness, the volume was just astonishing. I know how sound travels in those valleys and creek areas through the woods, but this was ridiculous. So, I contemplated this for a little while and decided, well, I think I'll look more into this. So I started going on the internet, and I discovered the Sierra Sounds by Ron Moorhead, beautifully narrated, incidentally, by Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek, The Next Generation. I ordered it, the 2 CD set, and I played it. There were still CDs back in those days.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I remember.
right. So, oh my, this is what I heard. A lot
It
of
hit you.
it hit me, and I knew, and then it just exploded. My whole paradigm was completely shifted at that point. So, okay, they're in North Carolina and very close by, and so uh, a few years later, I decided I wanted to volunteer at the park, but I really wasn't thinking about Sasquatch at the time. So they were still small then, and they over time they accepted me into their family. There was a small unit of people there at that time. It was great, and there were times when I would go out on the trail alone with just a two-way radio, could hear all the local police calls and fire calls. Never had an experience that whole time out doing the trailblazes and the trail maintenance with roots, clearing roots off the trail, what have you, a little cleanup. Never had an experience. But however, I stopped that in 2006. A year later, I decided to go back down, not as a volunteer, but once again a visitor. And so this was a January afternoon, early January of 2007, right?
Mm-hmm.
One car in the parking lot. It just had the whole park to myself, right? So I decided, well, I'll try this Campbell Creek loop, 5 miles, and there's quite a walk down slope before you cross that bridge, a footbridge over the creek, and then I decided to make a right and come back around counterclockwise. And there's that camp, the family wilderness camp. And I just kind of explored that a few minutes and just started my way back down the trail. I think I was probably maybe 2.5 miles in and that far from the parking lot at that time. And started noticing just off to my right, out of sight, of course, bipedal footsteps. And I thought, well, this can't be a deer. Deer don't do bipedal stuff, right? Very loud. I was back then, I wasn't in the best physical shape. I was 240 pounds and very unhealthy. So I moved slowly at that time. And, if you ever been to that area, to traverse those hills, it can win. It can win you.
It has I have a tachycardia, so it's really hard on my heart.
Oh,
so, yeah, I had one
careful.
of the worst episodes I ever had in Raven Rock, and it's simple. They're simple hills, but for whatever reason, I just got to just one area, and I mean, I thought my heart was going to shut down. I don't. It was crazy. But anyway, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Oh, so I didn't think a whole lot about that. It started right at that family wilderness, and not a soul out there. One car probably on the main Raven Rock Loop. All the infrastructure you see today didn't exist then. Diener finally allotted them some money to improve everything there, and they've done a fantastic job, by the way. So I would stop, it would stop. And I thought, okay. And it's like instinctively, it didn't take long for it to hit me that, yeah, this is what this is. This is what I really think this is. Very loud, and just the ruffling of the rustling of the leaf litter. It was frightening. And I knew I could not escape fast. I was frightened, absolutely frightened. I don't even think I had a cell phone at that time, or at least it wasn't on me, and it wouldn't have mattered anyway because I think the signal drops in there, or did in those days. Um, so I would pick up the pace a little. It would keep on top of it, right beside me, just totally paralleling or pacing me, always off to the right. So I make that turn to come back down to the last leg of the trail. This continued. I would have to stop and breathe. It would stop. I would start walking again. It would walk. I would stop, over and over, rinse and repeat. This happened all the way down to the bridge, back to that bridge over the creek. And then across the bridge, it stopped. And I made that way up that big slope back to my car. And I knew instinctively that this is what I experienced. And I was very blessed to get out of there alive the way I felt at that time, because I knew I was alone. So later on in that year, well, my sister and her family live I heard in one of your older podcasts, Victoria, talking with Matt. Ball Road is where my sister, near where my sister has lived since 2001.
That was the Dogman
The Dogman, right? Of course, it's paved there now.
It is, but it's still
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful through there. I love to drive that River Road. Take that access off of 42 and go River Road through there. But incidentally, I don't know if you've been through there lately. On River Road, the northern part, they're
Not about a
deforesting.
year.
Oh, they're tearing all the woods down, that butt right up against the boundaries of the park. And I hate to see that progress. Right. But anyway, such beautiful country. It's a shame.
That is such a beautiful road. It is almost like something you would see in a postcard. Please tell me there's not going to put a subdivision up.
It sure looks that way. Yeah, I drove through there the other day on the way home from work, a little diversion on the way home to Lillington. Yeah, it sickens me. I don't doubt it, because this is going on all over the Harnett County.
There's nothing sacred anymore.
Not anymore. No, ma'am. So back in 2007, as I mentioned, my sister lives in that area, right near, closer to Cokesbury than Duncan, and she's on 6 acres, beautiful. A lot of remains of moonshine parts on her land. But anyway, so she, my youngest niece had her 5th or 6th birthday, which I was invited to her party. So on the way home to Fuquay, I diverted through, I was still living in Fuquay at that time, diverted to River Road. And there's one particular power line cut in there. And in those days, it was better maintained, as far as they kept it clearer than they do today with the brush and overgrowth. I saw some deer grazing. Well, I had used a digital camera, right? No kind of thing like this existed for me in those days, anyway.
Good old days.
Good old days, right? So I saw these deer grazing, and I pulled over to the side of the cut and started. This was like at 7:30 at night, at the end of July. Started, the flash going off, taking a picture of the deer. As soon as that digital flash went off, something to the right, just sounded like a asteroid or something dropping out of the sky, just crashing on the forest floor. And I jumped back.
Coming down from a tree?
It's possible. It's possible. But the thing is, after that, in just a split second, it was bipedal. I could hear it running down slope, and just out of hearing, earshot in a matter of seconds. Bipedal, breaking branches all along the way. And again, I knew what had happened. What had happened. Um, I'm getting nervous just recalling it. Yeah, it's coming like I'm reliving it again. I'm always alone when these things happen. So, I filed that away along with my earlier experience. And for somewhat, whatever reason, I started. Well, again, I go back to the internet. I don't know how much was out there in those days. I can't remember. You didn't have Wes and Woody, and Cliff and Bobo and everybody. There was Tom Biscardi. So I reached out to Tom, sent him you remember him searching for Bigfoot, maybe? I don't know what's become.
I've heard that he was mentor to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't so much a mentor to me. I just didn't know who to reach out to. I didn't really know anything about the BFRO. And so I started listening to his radio internet program. And so I wrote him a letter, and he was very touched by it, he said. And I remember him reading it. It's around, I don't know, I forgot when it was, but he actually started, I mean, he was moved to tears. And that shows you the kind of state I was in at that time. I must have been terribly depressed or something, but because I battled with depression my entire life. But I can get into that later if you like. But so he reached out to me and asked me to be a guest, and we had some great phone conversations. I don't know where he is today, but not long after that, some controversy erupted, something to do with Coast to Coast AM, if you don't mind me mentioning that, and other things.
You say
But,
whatever you want to say, John.
okay. But he was the nicest man to me. I love him and respect him to this day. Um, inviting him and his crew to my house if ever they ever came to North Carolina with their crew and needed somewhere to lodge while they do their research.
Awesome.
But he was so great to me in many ways, kind gentleman. So he had me on his program, right? And he had another guest lined up, but he wasn't there. He was out on the West Coast closing a business deal, as I recall, and he had his guest host interview me. And so I expressed like I am tonight, because I'd never been on anything, no local radio, nothing. And they're like, what am I doing? I'm out of my comfort zone for sure. So this was radio. So, landline, right? And I expressed, I started talking. I was using the worst grammar like I'm doing now. And, forget words and syntax and vocabulary. I don't care. I'm too old to care anymore.
You know what? Listen.
Right.
You are on the wrong person's show to worry about grammar.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you.
You be you, and that's
right.
good enough. How about that?
Yeah, hey, you got a deal. Thank you, and thank you for allowing me that kind of freedom. It takes all the pressure off. Well, I expressed to the guest host or the guest interviewer, whatever, co-host, my nervousness. He said, "That's all right. There's only 1 point some million people listening globally right now." And I said, "Oh, I feel better now." But I continued on, and in Victoria, I ended up monopolizing the show, and I did not mean to do that. And it was only those 2 experiences, or 3 experiences, excuse me, I forgot about the vocals to date. But I conclude this little thing here by saying that they concluded that these were just a few Sasquatch that were migrating through the area, and they weren't going to harm me. They were simply peeking at me, behind trees. They meant no harm. They're just curious about us. That's all. That's the limit. And I thank them, but I'm, all these years later, the jury's still out for me on that deal. And as I learn more and more, I'm not so sure, and that'll lead me to the next section if you want to cover that.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Because I understand the depression thing.
Yes.
the community has helped a lot of people going through things. The people that you
Mhm.
meet, the friends that you meet, was that the same for you? Did you meet those folks that kept you company and just were
Right.
positive at the right times?
I think through the it's a kind of a joint effort with my counseling.
Mhm.
I don't know how much I should get into this, but I
That
did.
you don't have to. Yeah,
Uh,
you talk. It's your show. You talk about what you want,
okay.
and for sure, if you're not comfortable, don't. I'm just saying I
Oh, I
understand the
know.
depression part.
I
And
know.
let me tell you, Workman's Comp sent me to counseling for
Oh,
over a year, um,
right.
because of what I went through. But
Mm.
my anger issues were so bad, my counselor would not sit across from me. She sat
Mm.
across the room from me,
Yes, ma'am.
but it took her a year to figure out that I was just trying to figure
Mhm.
things out in life. So
Right.
I'm not ashamed of it. So be it.
Well,
Yeah.
I know you're right, and I'm not ashamed. I've just been too guarded for so many years. And I mean, it's to me, it's foolish. What if I hold something back that may be helpful to someone else? I don't know, you know.
It's not selfish and it's not
Right.
foolish.
Mm,
You're like me. You have faith and
mm,
and just I mean it's okay. It doesn't make we
yeah.
don't have the answers and but
Well,
that I was just wondering how the community there in that time,
I know.
if you built rapport in the community, because getting out sometimes
Right.
with people in the woods
Yeah.
is one of the best therapies.
I
That
should agree with you, but unfortunately I can't share in that experience in my past. Not too often. More in the last few years, yes. But in the beginning, no. It was just I was a loner out there. Uh, as I say, they accepted me in their family during the volunteer period at the state park, and it was great. That was therapeutic and helpful, and things that followed in the years thereafter.
two
But
two
you,
things. Go
mhm.
ahead.
Oh, I was
Two
going to
things
say,
about later. Go ahead.
oh, just well, it's kind of like I don't know. I felt like I've lived vicariously or something for a lot of years there with my grandmother, and I kind of fell into the role of caregiver. And I'm so grateful I had those years now, looking back on it, but not outliving life the way I should
So
have. And so,
you get to live sometime.
yeah. So, yeah, I discovered YouTube not long after I was on Tom Biscardi's program and got involved in a certain segment of that community. And that was global. And I made a lot of nice friends that way. But then that's the internet, it's not actual contact with people. So, but that was helpful, therapeutic. Sang some songs and stuff like that. And
That's awesome. Now,
yeah.
Raven Rock,
Hmm.
I have a question, but I'm gonna
Sure.
say this. The area of Raven Rock, if you go on my YouTube channel under the shorts, you'll see a big X. And me and Matt was literally there that day and found that X.
Hmm.
I'm one of those I'll try to debunk something before I'll support it.
Yes.
That that's X structure,
Right.
there it was wedged and it was an X, but it
Uh-huh.
used smaller whatever made it, whoever made it, wedged it between the trees. I mean, it was made. It
Hmm.
didn't fall, and it was heavy. It would
Yes.
probably take two people with it on the shoulder just to get it off.
Right.
It was wedged, and that
Yes.
was in that area, like on the other side of the Cape Fear River.
Okay.
The next thing I wanted to ask you:
Sure.
why do they lock the campers in at night? They lock the gate
They
where the
do.
camper. Why?
Mhm.
To me, that's a safety issue. Why do they
Mhm.
lock that gate?
Indeed. That's a good question. Um, it's a lot different today than it was when I was working there 20 or 15 years ago. Whole different scenario today. Of course, I remember in 2021, I was doing or maybe at the end of 2020, I went down that 5 mile trail and heard a knock and turned around to look at the knock, or listen to where the knock came from out of the woods, and discovered a huge structure, like a, not teepee exactly, but kind of similar to that. Anyway, the park, I was the only one on the trail in the park hours. And I was first time I'd been on that trail, and I kind of got lost getting back to the parking lot. And I recall, and this is not to cast dispersions whatsoever on the rangers there, but he was like rushing me out of there, and he like, hurry up, get to your car and get out. To me, it was kind of rude to treat a visitor that way, but again, I don't want to cast dispersions on the personnel there, not at all. But I thought it was also strange that they ran me out right before closing that particular day. So yes, I that's a good question. I remember asking when I volunteered there in 05 to 06, the volunteer coordinator, Matt knows her. You know, I told her about the sounds I had heard from that particular area of the park. She said she had heard that through the years, and it got to the point where she was afraid to go and do her duties there in that particular area near Campbell Creek. And she said she refused, told the superintendent she refuses to go alone anymore, and he agreed to that. And so I asked her, I was intrigued by what she said, because we both heard the same vocalizations, the same type. And she asked me, did it sound kind of like Native American, a blend of Native American and Gaelic? I said, it sure did. I said, yeah, the Scots settled that. The first Europeans to settle this area were the Scots. Mm-hmm. And so I asked her about Bigfoot. Well, I don't believe in Bigfoot. I think it was paranormal. I said, okay. So I asked the superintendent later, and he was kind of short and sweet. There's no such thing as Bigfoot. This was in 05 and 06. So the video I put out that I pulled after I realized it may not have been received too well by apparently the state park caught on to it after my first visual encounter in 2021. I felt like a marked man, so I thought, I don't want to draw this kind of attention, so I'll just pull it down. Yeah, so lost my train of thought there.
It's but okay.
Maybe their senses there have been heightened. I know there's a lot of military that fly over, but then we're in the flight path, aren't we, of Pope? And so, yeah, I don't know.
But you said she had heard tell of people hearing the same thing.
The very same thing. She described what I heard to a T. It's like my hair went up. I couldn't, it shocked me.
Did you ever get any stories from people there, or have anyone approach you with something weird that went on when you were?
This same lady, the volunteer coordinator at that time, mentioned on the northern end was a picnic table there at one time. Well, there still are a couple of picnic tables there, I think, but this was more into the tree line right off the parking lot. And she said she saw an African-American man in coveralls lying on the table. And just when she and her staff came in, fellow, coworkers came in their trucks, this guy got off the table and walked off and just literally vanished. And of course, nearby there's an old cemetery,
Oh man.
Yeah. And yeah, I think they were it's a historical area, and I understand there were slaves buried there of that period,
It's a beautiful area, and don't let the shallow water fool you. It is dead. That water can be pretty deadly.
It can be, yes.
So what was your next experience?
Yes, well, let me think. Well, they kind of waned over because I got involved in other things since 07 and I would rarely go out anymore to do that. And then I met Amelia in 2012. We got married, and just on occasion, usually when we have a blow up, I would go running off to Raven Rock or wherever. And seriously, I was
Yeah.
a jerk. I was a jerk. I know that, and that was my way of escaping, you know. And then I go back to the northern or into the interior. This was been in the would have been during the teens, 2000 teens. And I would hear things. I asked Matt about it on his show one night about that metal clashing sound in the middle of the woods. What is that? You know, things like that. Uh, Branch breaking, not so much bipedal stuff, but stuff that kept me interested. And then we moved from Fuquay, Varina, I believe in 2018 to Raleigh. I was back in Raleigh, and just as an escape, I'd start going back to Raven Rock. Oh, I know. During 2020, during the whole COVID thing, with the shutdowns and all, I just I wasn't working at the time. It wouldn't be long before I would be able to get back to work, thankfully. But I went on YouTube and found Stephen Barcelo, and you know who I'm referring to?
I do. I
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Toward Halifax County.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm.
So I drove up one afternoon because at that time I was in the northern part of Raleigh. It wasn't a long drive to his area. Met him, just so cordial and nice. And that same day, I think I went maybe another day. Not long thereafter. This was July of 2020. That's when I met George and Johnny in the parking lot for the first time. They let me tag along, and you know,
Johnny Tucker.
Johnny Tucker.
Good guy.
He's outstanding.
Yes.
I love old Johnny, and it's you know it's an honor to know him. And as I acknowledged that on my YouTube channel at the time, along with Stephen and George. I don't know if you've met George. He's not on Facebook right now, but he's appeared with Stephen in some of his videos, and also that PBS North Carolina Now thing they did. He and I are very good friends, and we stay in touch as we can. And that's how they like Stephen reached out to me a while later, and you know made me feel special, made me feel included in the Medoc family, and I'm forever grateful to him and to all the guys for that. Wonderful relationships in this community. Going back to your question, it just really wasn't until the last 4 years that I really have found. It's still draining. You know, I've been sick. I'm sorry. A little drink of water. This is a wonderful, loving, supportive community. These are lifetime friendships that have been forged, and I'm very grateful and appreciative. I don't take it for granted. And so there's a lot of support there for me personally, and I hope I can do the same for this.
Yeah.
People.
I got to say with Johnny Tucker, any man that'll give up his golf clubs for Bigfoot has respect.
Indeed, because I was into golf one time, pretty heavily.
He said he told his wife, "Honey, giving up golfing."
Yeah, that's devotion right there, right? That's dedication.
But you have also, before I go into you and Matt, the structure that you found, I think it was on the Campbell Trail. What did that one look like?
Well, this was actually not on Campbell. This was on that. Give me a minute. I haven't been there in a while. This is where the campground area. You have a combination of cyclists and hiking trails. You know, they change the direction you can walk on ever so often. That was probably, it's a 7-mile trail. I was probably 3.5, 4 miles in there when I discovered this thing based on a knock I heard. And it was, it was funny. When I hit that particular area on the trail, an overwhelming sense of being watched just invaded me. And that's, my senses were heightened at that point. It was very paranoid, just looking in every direction.
Yeah.
And I was noticing all these interesting tree bends and breaks at right angles and all in the same direction, usually about anywhere from 4 to 6 feet off the ground, I estimated. So I hear this very pronounced knock in the background. No one out there. I turned around, and that's when I noticed this humongous structure. I did take George out there later. It was still there. And also Lisa Sullivan. we met out there. He had his thermal, and he discovered a like a companion to this structure that had been built there long after had first discovered this thing right off the trail. We went down and checked for prints and all. We saw some impression, as I recall, around it. But this was in 2020, I believe, or
You
maybe
said you saw
2020.
impressions.
Yeah. I've been all off trail in Raven Rock over the years, way off trail where no one goes, because I knew the park pretty well, having volunteered there, and found tracks, that just like almost single file with a long stride between them. As I recall, I would take tape measure and I take pictures and films from my YouTube channel, usually anywhere from 14 and a half on average to 17 and a half inches, with some very good definition uh, with the toes, and usually a 4 or 5, 6 inch spread at the toes. And you can clearly see the mid-tarsal break at times. Not always that well defined, but you could tell. And it was on game trails. It was certainly not on the regular hiking trail. And around these areas, I would notice things like this is near Campbell Creek, incidentally. Just pieces of tree branches that looked like they had been stripped of their little twigs, lined up almost like a picket fence against a tree right near a slope. And of course, twists, little teepee structures, things of that sort, way off trail. And so I finally make my way back to the trail. But all of this, I did have experiences at Medoc, incidentally, in 2020. But then I started focusing more on Raven Rock, a little bit closer to home in a sense. Anyway, I knew the area better than I do Medoc. And actually, one night I was doing a little video at Medoc. It was dark. I was the only one left out there in that parking lot. One street light. I wrapped up the video. The fog had set in heavy that night, and as soon as I shut off the camera, I start toward my car, which is parked against the tree line in that parking lot. I keep hearing like rustle, and then like pine cones and sticks hitting the parking lot. And it dawned on me I was having sticks and pine cones hurled at me. I apologize for this.
You're fine. You're fine.
I went back the next day and saw this debris right in the same area I was parked in. And this was during holiday time, so they didn't have many visitors. So, wow. And right up to that night, I was still down in the creek, Fishing Creek area, that famous area where the seat is. Something threw something huge into the creek. It kind of gave me a start. So there's definitely a lot of activity out there. I've seen prints. I've been out there with George, Johnny, Stephen, a guy named Jimmy, several others over time. Saw the things they've discovered, and all those broken trees on one side of the Medoc Mountain itself just astonished me. And I think I've been paced out there at times, but I never actually had a visual sighting. And kudos to Johnny, by the way, for what happened to him last year. I know that road well he's referring to.
Look, Johnny's hook, line, and sinker now.
Oh, he is.
He'll never play a game of golf again.
That's it. That's right. I mean, forget about the golf clubs altogether now. No hope for that, right?
That was a good visual he got on that.
It was indeed. Yeah, kudos to Johnny.
But you have when you look at it, you have a lot of activity.
Mm-hmm.
You have seen the structures, the imprints.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you tell people where they can find them.
Uh-huh.
But walking single file, that tells you a lot.
Yeah, it does, with long strides between each step. Yeah.
Do you remember how long the strides were?
I think I do, right off the top of my head. Usually it's 6 feet on average.
Holy cow.
Yeah. These things are indelible, Victoria, And I do have a photographic record of those. They're just stored away and I've got to retrieve all that. I did save my clips, but here's the big thing for me, because yes, my wife says, don't deny it. You're in there looking for Bigfoot, and you know it. No, I'm just looking for sign, and no, 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 you are. So
It's
really,
okay.
right. Yeah. Yeah, early January, another beautiful, day for that time of year, temperature wise. It rain set in a little later. So I'm in there standing in front of the sign as if I'm a documentary maker doing a travel log or something. I was going to put out a series, Raven Rock this, volume 1, and all the rest. But,
That's awesome.
thank you.
But you
So,
have a podcast, so you can still do
well,
it. You're
yeah.
very capable of doing that, Joan.
Oh, well, thank you, Victoria. I appreciate your vote of confidence. 'Cause I've lost confidence over the years, believe me.
No, don't do that.
Right. That's a no. Yes, ma'am. But thank you for what you said. You're a great encouragement to me, really, Victoria. But I want to say this. I went in there one afternoon and started, with a selfie stick, pointing out things and saying, I used to volunteer here and this is what I did. And so I go off the main loop, Raven Rock loop, and go off this. I hope no people from Raven Rock are watching this, but I'm already marked anyway. So anyway,
It's fine.
right. I don't. Who cares, right?
It's public property.
That it is public property indeed.
Bring bring on business.
That's right. And I was told it was lawful to go off trail. Just be careful with the slopes. This is when I volunteered because I asked about it. Yeah, you can go anywhere you want to in a state park. You're not confined to the trails. That may have changed somewhat. It's according to the discretion, I suppose, of the personnel at whatever time, but I don't know. But anyway, I went down that service road, right, and then veer off to the left. It's a little bit of a clearing. There's a lot of beautiful mountain laurel in there, as you know. So I just go deep and down in there this one afternoon, and then way out of I can't even find the service road or trail anymore. I'm just surrounded by woods and a lot of thick underbrush, and of course the mountain laurel. And I come into this clearing type thing with just some old dead trees in there, and just see this beautiful teepee structure, but kept moving because I had limited time. I couldn't sit and camp out there on one thing and try to explain it, camera. Then I started noticing twists that looked very unusual, and breaks. So I realized, I'm filming, just constantly doing segmented filming, trying to preserve my battery, at the time, and hitting record, the off button, record off. So I rest for a few minutes, right, in this clearing area. I look straight ahead. There's a narrow kind of a narrow clearing. I don't know. Maybe it was the result of a prescribed burn at one time or something. But it was like on a 2 or 3 degree incline from where I was. And I noticed something with my naked eye didn't look quite right at the top of this ridge, And so I looked through the lens, right, and zoomed in. Oh my. There it was. I saw it from its bottom part of its torso on up. Zoomed in. Hard to tell with the naked eye. At first, I thought, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? I'm out here a mile in from either side of the trail, or half a mile in maybe. And this thing, it has to be a tree stump. My mind couldn't register what I was seeing. Naked eye or through my cell phone. That's what I filmed with. I had no equipment. That's it. Zoomed in at full capacity there. And I just started noticing details, which I'll get into. But when this thing started moving, I realized I wasn't looking at no tree stump. Now, after the encounter, I realized I went back on the trail and made my way to the trail and started filming. But as I was quickly looking for the footage I just filmed, I've got it, I forgot to hit record. Totally forgot. It stunned me, Victoria.
I get it.
this time, this thing, and you know, I did go in looking for sign, hoping to see one, but I never really expected to see one. Not really. It just, you know, it's so indelible to this day. I can still see it clearly in my mind. Um, Tall and slender, extremely muscular. Its hair was parted in the middle, like Dr. Zayas in the old kind of like reddish like that. A combination of chocolate reddish color of its hair, long shaggy fur, almost no neck, broad shoulders, just a head sitting on a body basically. Slender features, had a beard, completely black face, a deep set eyes, you know, big brow ridge there. You can make out its nose. It was mustache and beard. The rest was red except for the chest, all black, and made Schwarzenegger look like well, like me. You know, it's just you could tell it was a male. When this thing started moving just slightly, that's at the time I used the word sway because I couldn't think of anything else. Well, since then I've learned the word glide. These things glide like smooth movement. And this is what it was doing between two pine trees up there at that on top of that ridge. And it was like it was only making half-hearted attempts. It realized I had discovered it, obviously, and it had been watching me long before I even realized it was there. Just slow glide, and only half concealing itself. Then it would come back and go back. And I'm sitting there shocked. What do I do? It's above me. I'm surrounded by mountain laurel. Are there more around? Is this an ambush? All kind of thoughts went through my head. So I just backed up a few paces and did what I've heard not to do. Ran like the dickens. Got cut up by briars and tripped in this little creek. And I finally made my way back to the trail and was able to finish the video. I put it out. Got a lot of views. But I think that's the one that made me a marked man. But these other experiences that I related to you earlier, they were after this took place, when I found the stick structures in other areas of the park. It's a very active place to this day.
What year was that?
This was 2021, early 2021. And weren't many people there that day. So
this was this, it was during COVID, right?
Yeah, it's still during COVID, sure. Yes.
So to me, it would be relaxed because people aren't coming around.
I think, yeah, and I've heard that. Stephen related that to me one time, and I think that's, in retrospect, that's what it was. Yeah, they're more relaxed, more demonstrative in their activity, and they seem to me to care less whether you see them or not. Amelia put it to me, well, you're no wonder they were paying attention to you. You're standing there walking around in their living room. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
But they let you go. But let's go back to the tall, slender. I guess I have told people over and over in North Carolina, we have more of the tall, slender, not the patty type. They're still big.
Yes.
But these are like almost like you would see an NFL player. Their muscles are useful, they're toned, but I mean but people keep telling me they're juveniles, and this is just my belief because most of us act on assumptions.
Yes.
I believe those are the kind we have more in North Carolina. They just adapt better to the environment.
Right. Pretty much like perhaps the Florida skunk ape type.
Yeah, I don't know if Florida skunk ape. Every time I think of Florida skunk ape, I think about that thing that was with a palm leaf in front of it. It was like
I remember.
So I'm not sure how the typical Florida skunk ape would be described.
Right. I don't either. By the way, I keep looking at the camera lens. Am I looking the right place, Victoria?
You're looking right on me, buddy. You got
good. Okay.
Your sights, just like you had that Bigfoot in your sights.
Yeah, I did. Just didn't hit record. I was like this reminds me what happened to George. But in his case, when he had that sighting at Medoc, he was using his thermal. It took a while for it to kick into gear, evidently, and by then it was too late. But this thing was a lot closer to George than this other thing was to me. This, I estimate, was 200 to 250 yards away, which I later heard that that's a safe, for them, it's a safe viewing distance whenever they encounter humans, you know.
I have figured out how to attach documents to
Oh,
my StreamYard now. That would have been a great video to show, but it's okay because I want people to go find you. That's incredible.
yeah.
But I think when you busted a groove getting out of there, for lack of a better word, it
Yeah.
realized you were not a threat.
Yes. That's all I could conclude. But when you're caught up in the very moment, you just don't know, because I'm seeing something that I've experienced audibly and seeing their evidence, and of course coming in close contact with them pacing me, but never actually seeing one. Astonishing thing to me. So that night I went home. I was just like out of it, you know. I was so shaken. I was actually in tears. Millie kind of had to calm me down. So a few days later, I composed myself enough to make a little sketch, rough sketch. I've been trying to work on that sketch using Canva, you know, but it doesn't come close to what I actually saw. This thing, incidentally, based on your previous guest before you recorded tonight's program, that demonic element. Well, one thing that's, I think, the most indelible impression I got were its eyes, very dark and deep set. But through the camera, you could tell this thing was not happy. It was almost like a demonic glare or something at me. So if this is in the realm of the spiritual, and I don't know, I'm only speculating. They know, they have to know in the spiritual atmosphere that I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. And if it's demonic, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know.
Yes, you know what? You're entitled to feel any way you want to.
Well, thank
And
you.
you owe no one an apology if that's the impression you've got based on your beliefs and what you've learned in the world. And because I'm not gonna make an apology for mine, don't ever apologize for yours.
Yes, ma'am.
But I've heard demonic quite a few times. And there's people out there will disagree, and they, you know, I don't think they want to be your friend.
Well, you're right. You're right. You can't please all the people. And going back to my own personality, I realize I have tended to be a people pleaser, and
Yes,
it's not realistic. You can't always do that.
well, you know, you respect other people. It's just like, you know, I'm a Christian, but I have friends that are agnostic. Is that what I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to say? And I also
Yeah,
have people that are just flat out atheists, but I
right.
love them. And
Absolutely.
if that's their, but you know, I just, you don't have to think like I do for me to, you know, give you that
Accept
respect
me.
back. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So not everyone's experiences and not everyone's opinions are all going to be the same.
Right.
But I do. I mean, there's always opportunities where they, you know, could argue, well, if they were evil, they would have taken you out. No, because I think you're smart enough to know that we come back with posses and cannons and grenades.
Right. They figured it out
here in North Carolina. Well, I mean, if we go out, we're going out with the big sticks. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think they know that.
And people who know me know that I certainly am a constitutionalist. I love our country. I respect our Constitution, the Second Amendment. But I've never been around firearms my whole life and never developed an interest in that. People in my church, the guys, they do. There's a couple other guys. I just don't have that interest.
Well,
so I'm out there with a wing and a prayer, literally prayer when I'm alone.
I'll say this to you, my brother.
Yes.
My mama didn't give me a middle name, but if she did, it would have been Victoria 2A Herring.
Okay.
So
that's funny, Victoria.
It's the truth. My mama was lazy. She didn't give me a middle name, but I still love her.
No.
So anyway, that was an incredible experience. But now when you say, I'm sorry, I have arthritis in my shoulder. So when you say mark, what exactly do you mean mark in your definition?
Well, I don't know. you know, our buddy Barry, he told me something one time when I was relating something to him. He said, "Yeah, that's the company line, and that the old company line they give you. It's
Yeah.
a must be a bear or something, you know." I mean, I don't know. I'm paranoid about it now because I did hear talk when I went into the visitor center with a friend one time. I think it may have been George. I don't remember, but yeah, there was this guy that put out this because we asked about Bigfoot and they were selling the little bumper stickers. I saw Bigfoot at Raven Rock. I have one.
You literally saw
I
Bigfoot.
literally saw Bigfoot, and she thought referenced this guy that had this video and said, "Oh no, I better pull this because am I
You got
marking
a
myself? Am I
bounty.
bringing bad publicity to the?" No.
So they were talking about you too.
Yeah, and of course Uh, oh, I see. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Anyway, I continually have experience. That maybe that's why I tend to cling to the northern end these days, away from everybody else. But
Was that your only like
no,
class A sighting?
no, I have one more, I believe, and Matt, I think, and he's helped me with this with the zoomed in thing he did. You know, I started this Facebook thing in early 2021 because after, well, no, I'll take that back. This was a while, maybe a year later.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember. But anyway, after this experience, so I thought, well, I mean, the only thing I had to do on Facebook or had any dealings with Facebook was just doing the little jigsaw puzzle game, you know, up to that
Yeah.
time. I never messed with it. Um, so I started trying to join groups. And as soon as I put this sketch and all, I got bumped out. I got all kind of just crazy, rude pushback that I did not understand at the time. This is perplexing. I thought this is supposed to be a supportive community. I'm not out trying to prove or impress. You know, I like some support, and this is all a new world in a sense to me. Not really, but yeah, after a visual like that. And so I formed my own little private group, which Lisa Sullivan's my co-founder. It's a small group. You know, you're in it. Thank you. And
Enjoy
really,
it.
oh, thank you. Wonderful people. And so, you know, I would do these live Facebook things or just film and put it on Facebook later and just exclusively to this group. So this was April of 2022. And I'm down that service road I always take between the two equestrian loops. Okay. Notice all these rocks. But again, like Matt says, and like you say, you have to not just automatically assume this is Squatch activity. You
Mhm.
need to debunk it. I'm not sure I know how to do that exactly.
There's, may I say something?
Yeah, please. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, take advice from people, but you know your area.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's a lot of people out there that'll give you some excellent advice on what to look for,
Mm-hmm.
but what may occur in their area may not occur in your area. You
Yeah,
know,
right. That's true. Um,
I'm gonna
there,
shut up. But anyway,
there's,
I'm gonna shut up. Keep
oh
going.
no, I was just thinking that type of activity just it has to vary from place to place, no
I think
doubt.
so. Yeah.
So I saw this rock and I was about to leave. This was around Easter time of 2023.
2023.
And I on the way in, I was almost a mile down from the parking lot. I heard a tree snap or a branch snap on the way down to there and heard something scurrying off through the woods. Well, you know, squirrels are loud and there's some wild turkey in there. Um, but then something caught my eye down slope a little bit from where I was. And this is on film. You can see it in the Facebook group. And I said, "What? That's a dark figure." And I managed to compose myself long enough because I was the only one there as usual. I picked my times, I guess, but picked my
That might
moments.
be why you have your sightings, because you're alone and not distractive.
I think that's it, right? And evidently they don't feel threatened by me. But I want to get into something that perplexes me in a few minutes if we have time.
Absolutely.
Okay. Lately, my main focus has been on that area of the park. It's more accessible to me right now during this time in my life, but time wise and geography wise, the distance and all. So yeah, this thing wasn't moving, but it was between two trees, and I kept filming it. I said, okay, while I'm narrating, I said, I'm the only one out here, and I was frightened. And because I think instinctively I knew what I was seeing, totally out of place in this environment, because I was learning these woods almost where every tree is by then through osmosis, just repetitive, just going back out there, constantly. And it didn't move. Now there was an area behind it. I've explored that area after this took place. That's a kind of a clearing, and it was a sunny day. So the top of its head looks like there's some kind of like light flare above it, or almost like a halo type effect that had to no doubt be the backlight from the sun in that clearing area. So I think I was able to find the exact tree. It was standing between two trees. Anyway, it didn't move. It was just fixed like a statue. I knew by then they definitely have the ability to do that and take their stance for a prolonged period of time without seemingly budge a bit. And so I stopped long enough and took a still and then resumed filming. But I thought I've had enough, so I started backing out and went on home and put it on in our group, and some wonderful people, Matt, for example, took those stills and still frame shots and zoomed in. And my goodness, it's no doubt it has to be one. And then that's when Matt and I finally came together here. We've been correspondents for a while. By the way, I always tell Matt this. I don't know how he feels about it, but if anybody should be on narrator's voice, it ain't me.
Yeah.
It's
He's
him.
got that boom, don't he?
Oh, I
He's got
mean,
that
yeah,
boom. Oh yeah,
he
he
does.
does.
His diction and clarity of thought, I mean, that's when the brown shoes for me comes back in, because
Yeah.
man, his intellect, oh my, his experience. Uh,
Absolutely. Matt's awesome.
he's awesome, but he's a humble guy. I really, I love the man. Really, I'm sorry I haven't been able to get back up. Matt, I'm sorry, buddy. Lord willing, soon. You knew I broke my ankle playing pickleball at my pastor's home in April. Just now getting over that. But anyway, it's another story. I'm too old for that kind of activity, I realize now. But a lot of pickleball accidents, people in my age group, I found out. Anyway, so Matt and I went,
Well, if you would take up 2A, you wouldn't break your ankle. You just kind of
right.
stand.
I mean, I've stepped in all kind of holes going off trail. I never got hurt, not even
Pickleball got you.
pickleball in the streets of Lillington got me. Yes. I stepped
Uh,
on into the grass. Um, so Matt took his laptop with him. We had a little nice talk, and we went in there. And man, the stuff I was learning from Matt, just like a quantum leap in my own knowledge from him. And he pointed out things in the trees that I never would have guessed. He saw the same things I saw as
different
terms
view.
of rocks being put high up on stumps, and point out this triangular area. And I went and helped him with pictures and all, and the group of deer came through there that night. It's getting late, so we just left. But yeah, things like that. And then I went back alone to the area of that sighting of the dark figure, I still call it, and saw right in front of it, and it's this area probably about, I don't know, 50 feet in diameter. One little small diameter tree after another. Snap, not broken off, but snap at precise right angles in different directions. What does all
Wow.
this mean? I don't have a clue. X structures, I've seen them in the Uraris, Raven Rock, like you said, I've seen a few. I've seen mostly little small structures more than anything out there. And there are probably other experiences I've had, but I can't recall exactly. Is that would, well, at least they wouldn't qualify as type A. But George actually gave me a bag of marbles, and I started getting more into experiments, not so much gifting. And so there was a place in the northern end where I knew nobody goes. I mean, this is a place where angels fear to tread. Uh, and so I lined up the marbles in precise patterns, in this
Awesome.
hollowed out tree stump. I go back a few days. There's a few that have been moved around a little. Uh, yeah, through a progression off and on for about maybe 2 weeks. Um, they were reconfigured in precise geometrical patterns. So
Wow.
things of that sort. I've had like I would stop my car, on that river road at one point, turn it back on. Actually it was one night was very frightening. This loud whippoorwill, which I don't think was a whippoorwill,
Will.
coming closer to the parking lot right before this huge thunderstorm, midsummer storm came in. That was scary. But a tree being pushed over. I mean, a large tree that was literally being pushed over. How do you explain that when there's no breeze and it hasn't been any rain? There's not that many rotted out trees in that
Bigfoot.
area. Exactly. So,
Exactly.
but I would turn my car engine on, and then none of the electronics would work. It'd all just go haywire. So I pull up to another area start, and when I get out of that area, everything's back to normal. And I've heard they can mess with your electronics.
Wow.
Also, at the time, Victoria, when I was in that area so much alone, I'm an Elvis fan, right? And so at the time on my Apple phone, I had the Suspicious Mind downloaded as a ringtone, and it went off because I usually like to put it on silent when I'm out there, right? So I was getting probably a spam call. We can't go on together, blah 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 blah. And when sound traveled through the woods, and I cut it off quickly. But this is a strange thing, and I pointed it out to Matt. On that same trail, we went on, advanced maybe a good mile down that trail, and I saw little tiny pebbles. And Matt may not recall, and he probably thought nothing of it. To me, it was something to it because I knew the backstory. And two little tiny pebbles stamped into that muddy trail, that hardened clay, red mud substrate. The initials EP. It's not there now. I've gone back. Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
So crazy.
I know it's crazy. How do you explain that? I know these things. I'm convinced that they know you. And recently, because of an experience Johnny had, I had a little dialogue with some people on Facebook. They follow you home. And, where we live today, we're 7 miles from the park. And our first week here, and when we moved in the latter part of 2021 to Lillington, this ungodly howl woke both Amelia and I up in the middle of the night. A prolonged, guttural, deep, bassy, unnatural, uncoyote-like sounding howl. And she asked me, "Do they follow you home? Do they follow you, John?" Because that was, the year I had these experiences, 2021, the visual thing. So, but we're kind of on the edge of town, so it was a little bit more of a swath of just pure forest, probably from the Sandhills, Fayetteville, the base on up into the Cape Fear area. It's a swath of land, upper Little River and all. So there's the highway they can travel undetected, I would suppose. But going back to what we were discussing earlier, too much deforestation going on around here now. They're making, clearing that beautiful land to
that is why I think they love the military bases, because we're right on top of, me and you both were right on top of Bragg.
right.
But because they very rarely, the worst they do on bases or have a controlled burn. But if you go through Fort Bragg, you wouldn't even know you're going through a base. You would think we're in the middle of the Pine Barrens or something.
Yeah, exactly right. You're talking about closer to the Sandhills or the Pinehurst area? Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I've been interrupting you all night. My husband says you need to let people talk more. I said, well, I never get to talk, so I just have to.
That's the way I feel sometimes, Victoria. It's a habit I have. I think a lot of it's anxiety on my part, but
a lot of mine's just rudeness.
No,
but,
there's nothing rude about you at all, Miss Victoria.
Oh Lord, I appreciate that. I will tell you this. We're probably maybe 20 minutes from you, if that. Okay. Right up the road, not even maybe 5 miles. We had someone contact us that found prints or tracks on their land.
Right.
And literally this guy, he had something happen and he ended up selling all of his hunting stand. He got rid of everything.
Everything,
So
right?
we're supposed to go out there. I don't know if we're going out there Saturday or later on,
Yeah.
but there's also still people having sightings in Lillington, and you have a lot of UFO sightings in Lillington. This one
Really?
guy that was actually Matt's mom sent it to me. He says, my wife has seen Bigfoot at least 3 times. No, I'm not going to tell you, but I own a lot, hundreds of acres out here on the river. So no,
Yes.
I'm not telling you my name, but this is the UFO we saw, blah, blah, blah. Then he went on to his wife seeing Bigfoot all the time. And it's like he's almost aggravated with it. But if
Sure.
you draw a line from our house to this area that this guy wants to take us to, which is right down the road,
Right.
to Lillington, it is literally a straight line.
Wow.
Yeah.
And no doubt the upper Little River, it is, or lower Little River cuts through there, and there's a lot of swampland in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Wow.
it's I mean, it's still going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy just flat out. He's like, so I'm hoping we go out. We're either going to go out there
Yeah.
on Saturday, or we're going to go to Uwari. But I'm going to try to do live because you just do live in the field because I just
Yeah.
do something with the channel because I'm kind of been dormant a while. But
Right.
I can't get into my area. My area is flooded again. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. I back in February when I had some downtime, that's when I really started exploring. I think maybe the same area, and I went to well, it's in the Facebook, trying to be Mr. Promoter or what, but not
You
really.
go right ahead.
Okay, you're holding up the book and just but and I appreciate people in the group that watch my stuff. To thank them for their indulgence and patience, but. So I stopped filming that little thing. I went down. I've heard Matt talk about this area, campsite 10, 11. I didn't film all this, but as soon as I get
This
done,
Raven Rock.
now this is Uwari. I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine. I interrupt you and
no, this was West Mars Mountain.
yeah.
I started watching the squeaky stuff on YouTube, and I realized, hey, this isn't a long drive, and I learned some of the great back roads through there. And so it's kind of a quick straight line almost to the Uwaris from Lillington. And beautiful country between here and there. And Uwari is one of the most beautiful area geographically. And
Oldest mountains in the world.
Yeah, that's right. The oldest volcano range, right? The remains of it, is, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they say that's why the mountains are so low, because over the thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. It's amazing. So I saw, well, what's that other one? The Dirt Road Campground, and it's not
Yates.
Yates, yes. So I stopped in this vacant one, right? And I get out. This is kind of like on the edge of dusk. It gets dark early naturally in February. This huge X with a pine, made out of pine, and then one right behind it, not as big, and I get really paranoid then. There's this service road that continues on beyond this campground.
Long dirt road.
Long dirt road, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I started going back to, well, maybe West Morris Mountain is more feasible for me. I stopped, right. So soon as this always happens, like it did at Medoc, I stopped filming, activity happens. I don't know if that is commonplace among your viewers, our viewers here, but maybe it is. But so this sound between me, as soon as I stopped filming, ready to go at Morris Mountain, Uwari in February, I know there are cow pastures, there are dairy or farmers around that area, but not close to that area. But very loud guttural, like a dead cow lowing, and I heard some movement in there anyway, between where I was near campsite 10 and the Ophir Road. Is it Ophir? I don't know. But anyway, and then so I was getting in the car, and I had to get out of the car to put something in the trash can there. Knock in a tree. So, I always miss these things, but I had the feeling, and once again, I was being watched, and that's something I guess ever since 2021 that I'm constantly my antennas up, and I'm it's like this unconscious unawareness, something that I'm being watched all the time. Whenever I get out of the car, I think they know before you can get there. You're there, and I think they know me by now. And hopefully, they see me as no threat because the Lord knows I'm no threat. Um, anyway, so I go back later to the Uwharries just one or two more times in the afternoon. So I decided to take that leg of the Uwharrie Trail right up that rise, above one X after another. Maybe you've seen this if you've been out there, right on the edge, and some strange geometric things in the logs as you kind of reach the summit of that particular, I guess, mountain, and start my way down. I'm hearing vocal stuff behind me, you know.
Oh,
So that was it. I didn't have any more time after that. I got busy with another job and everything. So it's rare when I get out there these days. But I hear that people say it's not wise to go out alone in these very secluded areas, And my wife is, by the way, I never go out there without even a conscious awareness that, I want to get back home to my wife and I don't want to put her through anything. So I make her aware of what I'm doing, where I am. It's not like I just throw caution to the wind, forget everybody, I'm on
yeah.
watch. It's not like that really for me. And I know this. I'm taking chances, but all I can do is bathe myself in prayer and ask the Lord to protect me, no matter how simple the prayer so far He has. So,
Well, prayer isn't simple, it's powerful.
yes, ma'am, it is.
Well, it can be simple and powerful. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, I to me, it sounds like you're having your activity when you're alone, and
Yes.
and I don't know if it's because things are quieter and you're more focused. Because you like if I go out with somebody, my guards kind of dropped, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's safety in numbers. I believe that. But apparently, these things realize that you're more vulnerable, male or female, alone out there. I think.
Do you have an opinion on what you think they are, flesh and blood? Do you think
Yeah.
there's some kind of
Okay, this is it, and it's continuously evolves over
yeah?
time. But in the beginning, especially after seeing one, flesh and blood, it's a wood ape, undiscovered primate, whatever. And I was kind of preconditioned to think that, going back to my brief experience with Tom Biscardi. I'm not so sure now because of a guy, good close friend. He's in our group. His theory on, well, not theory, but what he feels about the biblical interpretation based, I guess, on Genesis chapter 6 about Nephilim. Okay. And then I start watching more Scott Carpenter. Is unabashedly unashamed to let the world know he's a believer in Jesus Christ. And kudos to his son, by the way. He's doing a great job carrying on his legacy, Travis. Um, Nephilim, but yeah, but how do you define that? Can you sharpen that more? His opinion basically is descendants of Nephilim, like a hybrid mixture of demonic and animals and people. I don't know. All I know, Victoria, is by my own experiences with the marbles, the different types of gifting and
That's
exchange.
not so demonic, is it?
Not really. No, it's something of great intelligence. Yeah.
But something there's a difference between doing something and being very capable of doing something.
Yes, exactly. You make a good point. You raise a good point there.
Maybe
I'm
it
still.
depends. Maybe it depends on the person.
I think
Boundaries are important, I believe.
the what? I'm sorry.
I think boundaries are important.
Exactly, and I respect theirs. Maybe I shouldn't venture so much off the trail anymore, but even when I was doing that, they had 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 to perceive me as nothing else, some slight form of entertainment. Some dude with this big Indiana Jones hat going around the woods, talking into a camera on a stick. So how threatening can that?
He probably knew you were coming before you even broke that.
That's right. That's what I think.
Someone said something,
Hmm.
and I can't remember who it was, but in a nutshell, it was, I think it was Joe and Pat when
Uh-huh.
they were talking, and they were talking about when you're pulling up into an area
Yeah.
that you start recording when you get out your car, but
Yeah.
they're already talking about you when you're coming up the road and saying, "Look who's going in our backyard."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
I don't think that's stretching it. I really don't. They make a valid, legitimate point. And by the way, I love them. I'm glad you had them
yeah,
on. Yeah,
they're awesome.
they are. But yeah, I think they're right in all seriousness. I think they learn you. They learn whatever vehicle you're driving. They're very intuitive and very in tune with their own environment and what's going on outside of there. And I
Well,
often thought about what about the people on horseback on these equestrian trails? What I think about the Patty Gimlin thing with
yeah.
Patterson's horse rearing back and he falling. But anyway, they get
Well,
used to the hikers, I'm sure.
I mean, you said yourself, they are the art of blending into anything standing still.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
I mean, just standing still. People, you can be leaning against a tree and just standing still, and people will walk right by you.
that is true, right? It's movement that catches the eye,
Mhm.
right? You're so
Yeah,
right. What do they eat, Victoria? Are they carnivorous as well as are they carnivores as well as eating the
I think they're carnivore, but I think
yeah,
like coyotes, they'll take advantage of berries and everything else.
right, right.
Corn, berries, crops.
Hmm.
Um, someone was telling me last night they don't think deer is their meat of choice, and it may
Right.
not be, but you hear them stealing a lot of deer.
A lot of deer and
Yeah, and
the
going after a lot of deer.
sure.
But I think you know, it's like, and I'm not going to compare them to coyotes,
Oh no,
but
no.
some coyotes in certain areas, when like the North Carolina biologist,
Hmm.
bite her tail, she keeps hitting me in the face. Some The North Carolina biologist, she's like a baby.
Oh,
The
I love
North Carolina
everything.
the North Carolina biologists will
Mhm.
study coyotes over here, and they have more of a meat diet, but they go to Fort
Right.
Bragg and it's mostly berries in their scat.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yeah. So I
Interesting.
think it depends on what they can get. Survival is survival. But
Survival. It's the
I
name of the
couldn't,
game.
yeah, but when you look at the calorie intake, even if, games scare us, I mean, wouldn't that be the time you just hunker down and conserve your energy just like people
Yeah.
would? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's all speculation. I mean, I'm not the
Hmm.
brightest crayon in the box, but I mean, that's my 2 cents.
I think you're right, Victoria. They would conserve as much as possible and take the paths of least resistance through the woods. From
Yeah,
my own
game
experience, mostly game trails, not the trails constructed by people. That might be a last resort. But power line cuts, I believe they're very active in those things. Yeah.
power, yeah, easements. Those easements. I think
Right.
that's what they use to come through our area to go to your area.
Right. Right.
Because I mean, it's just weird that I had you on and you're talking about that, and we have someone waiting
Yeah.
for us to go see see if we can experience what they experienced.
Right. And I hope you
And
can be safe out there.
oh, we
That's
will.
very,
Look,
very true. Yeah.
I'm not above tripping my husband, and I'm just joking. I'm just joking if he's listening.
I
No,
know.
we
All right.
stand together. We come in together. We leave together.
We're together. Hey,
Mhm.
that's great.
Ain't it
Yeah.
right, Swamp Kitty?
Yeah. I should bring my dog on, but he's busy. He's a mama's boy. He doesn't.
Oh,
I just feed him, taking the walk. That's all.
everybody's pets are welcome on the show.
Well, thank
Swamp Kitty has taken out
you.
a camera or two on the show. It should say Miss V and Swamp, or the Swamp Kitty Show is what
There
it should
you go.
say, because I am on at her leisure.
Right at her leisure. Hey, I understand
Yeah.
that.
So my question to you is, what is your bottom line for going out?
I'm not out there trying to prove a thing. I'm not trying to make. There was a time, well, maybe it's a possibility. The $1 million shot, not so much anymore.
Just,
As I can get older, and my kind of there's a shift in some of my values from where they were a few years ago. I think life beats you down to that point sometimes through trials and so forth.
you,
Just the pure enjoyment of it, and the camaraderie. There are a lot of other people I didn't mention tonight uh, that haven't been totally alone. Again, once again, that supportive, beautiful network of friends, and that I'm honored that they would include me as their friend. Uh, we've had combined experiences out there, but more vocals, more samurai chatter through the dish, not just at Raven Rock, but when other plays. I might do something with YouTube with that in the future, so maybe I'll save it for
absolutely.
then. Yeah, who knows? But not monetization, not anymore. There was a time, yeah,
If
but
you got them, if you got the money shot, would you even go public with it?
probably not. And then it would get stolen anyway. No matter how much you trademark it and copyright it, it'll get stolen. So
Hang on, Mama. So,
it was just something special for my circle of friends.
so let's. I mean, let's go. Just go back to your childhood. So, I mean,
Yeah,
when you were growing up, it weren't a cakewalk. It was.
no, ma'am.
Your family had your struggles.
Yes,
Your grandmother basically was the solid foundation in your life.
I think so. Yes,
But
ma'am.
somewhere between here and there,
Uh-huh.
even with everything you went through, just surviving it, life weren't easy on you and your family.
Yes, ma'am.
At some point, you became, I don't want to say a humble person, but there was a certain light that just radiates from you of
Well,
kindness.
thank you. Thank
And I just wonder if that has increased your the probability of you having activity. It's like an aura, an energy.
I understand. Yeah, I haven't considered that. I haven't contemplated that at all. Never made the connection. Only thing I know is, as I said in my recent message of the day, plug, right? Sorry.
Please
We try,
do, because it's a
well,
good.
well, thank you. That's the brainchild of my buddy Chet Hardaway, and he conceived this thing. And I just started off reading stuff because I didn't know what to do, right? So yeah, I'm working on the creative process now. But my latest thing is that story I shared with everybody, shared
the
with you,
the
Victoria.
little boy singing.
Yeah, that was mostly ad lib. I couldn't believe I did it, but and I didn't worry about grammar and all that stuff. I know some of it was
You were
terrible.
yourself.
That was myself. A little bit of script there, yeah, but so I'm more comfortable with that type, and I think that's where it will go from there. And I completely forgot why I brought it up, but I really have.
We were talking about the aura, the energy
Oh,
of, and I was saying your life journey
right.
probably created the person in your
Yeah.
character.
Well, as I mentioned in that little boy singing, Elvis
Elvis.
gospel music was. Oh, I gave it away. If anybody hasn't heard it, okay, it's a story about Elvis and his humble beginnings. And I correlated that to my own life experience being a fan, basically, and straying away from the church as a child. Because, Southern Baptists, we're here in the Bible Belt. I
Southern.
don't know about your experience growing up, but you were like forced to go to church, right? Your peers were there. Had no idea. You just walk the aisle, say, yes, I want to join the church, be baptized. And my concept then was like, I guess, what do? You obey the 10 Commandments and join RAs and the choir, which I did, the children's choir. Anyway, after so many years of not understanding what I was into, I don't want to cast aspersions on this church, but I think may have been a mismatch for me. So
Understand that.
yeah, I strayed away from that world altogether, and got more and more into Elvis. You can't do Elvis and like he didn't have a gospel side. Well, he did, as I mentioned. That's all his Grammys. He won for that illustrious long 22 some year whatever career, just as gospel presentations. It's all he was awarded for.
I don't know if you know this about Elvis. Then I want to say something about the church really quick.
Oh, sure.
Elvis had, it was said by several people that he had a healing power about him.
Yeah.
That they come across one example. There was many examples in this, and if I can find the guy that wrote the book, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
The link to you.
Sure. Thank
But
you.
he said him and Priscilla, and I think it was Priscilla relating the story, come across someone that had a wreck. The guy had a heart attack, and he had a wreck, and Elvis stopped. Big famous Elvis stopped and laid hands on him, and I mean the guy was just like fine.
Yeah. Yes.
So they said he literally could say prayer over people and just make them new.
Right. This makes my hair stand up. What little I got left. Because yes, and I got to see the Imperials all in concert many years ago, but they were his first backup, award-winning gospel quartet, top one in the nation at that time. You'll see him in Elvis. That's the way it is his backup. But anyway,
his song "In the Ghetto" made me cry.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Yeah. So one of the singers talked about this. It's always been said by everyone. Whenever Elvis came into a room full of people, you could sense this presence, this charisma there. Even before you turn around, look, and saw it was Elvis. Like showed up.
That energy. It's an energy.
That energy, and I think Elvis believed in that. He was a Christian. I don't care what anybody says. He was a Christian. He was born again.
We all fall short. He fell short, but he still.
Did. Yes.
But don't we all fall short?
We all golly, hey, I'm your prime example here in Lillington. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, and then I'll get off the subject. Christians, in which I'm Southern Baptist, but I was raised with 5 Pentecostals, and the Christians are the downfall of Christianity. Christians are when I had my near-death experience, when I started recovering, I was all on fire to share it and to go to churches and be a witness to it. Right. But it was the Christians in the churches that told me that my experience weren't valid because that's not what they believed.
Right, right.
So it wasn't until this year I started telling it. And I sent you the link on your request, but the 10 foretells. But it was people in the church that discouraged me from witnessing to what God blessed me with, and that was my life.
Right. Kind of stifled you, I guess.
Well, yeah. So it's really important to find the right church. And one of the reasons I quit going to church, do not get me wrong, I'm still a spiritual person, and I fall short every day, just like Elvis Presley does. I fall short.
Me too.
But I think as Christians, and I will say this with the greatest respect for our Lord, as Christians, a lot of us are hypocrites, because when people come to work drunk or the drug user comes to church, we look at them and we think, why are they here like that? But that's who this church was designed for. But our judgmental and judging people, over time, they have turned their back on Christ because of our attitudes.
Yes, I would totally agree.
But but do I still love, I love me some Jesus. He died for my sins. But do I not people? We can be some of the most judgmental. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the right church.
Yes, ma'am.
You can get as discouraged in your faith in a church than not going to a church.
Right. And I think that's what happened to me, because I started getting a neighbor into Scientology, and I was starting to be influenced with that as a teenager. But then the more I learned about it, the denial of Christ as God, and there really is basically no God. It was something innately, even though I was like running away from God, not realizing that at the time, it just didn't set right with me. I cannot deny the existence of God. It's just something in me won't let me do that. The gospel music, and by the way, the stories with the Imperials and the Sweet Inspirations,
okay,
they told stories about Elvis and about one of them had with cancer, and he laid his hand on and prayed, and the cancer went away. This is their story. So
it said it went back to something that happened when his twin died.
mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember how late there was.
Right.
It was something about.
Yes,
I can't remember.
Jesse Garrett.
Didn't one of them get hit by lightning, or he got struck by lightning when he was a kid, or something happened?
It could be. I've heard so many stories. Elvis grew up so impoverished. He had to go out and shoot squirrels there in East Tupelos, a young boy with his little BB gun. They were very impoverished. Elvis never forgot his roots. Never once. Not in his whole life. See, I'm going off on a tangent. Digressing.
It's okay. It's your time.
Well, thank you. He grew up in the first assemblies of God, and he was exposed. His first exposure to music was the type of music he was hearing in the church, and how uninhibited and free and the praise and worship was. And so that influenced him as at an early age. Some say he may have been misled spiritually by this one guy, his guru, but I think he finally, toward the end of his life, there was some indication that he'd come full circle. And so there's another story there. But it was his music that led me to the Lord, where I was headed with all that. So if you see anything good for me today, it ain't me, Victoria. It's the Lord and his continual sanctification process in my life, which can be brutal because I'm stubborn and stupid a lot of the times. The trials can be heavy. But I really believe this. This is just to give glory to God and his work, and I'm not perfect. I sin. I plan sins. That's how sinful I am, the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
And our church community has been very supportive and not judgmental. And I come in not with a checkered past, not very clean.
Don't we all?
Yes, ma'am. So, yeah, that's where I wanted to get everything in you would ask me, and I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, but don't we all?
Yes, ma'am.
Don't we all? But is it where the people churches are made for?
Yes, indeed. Wholeheartedly agree with you. By the way, I may be wrong, but did you send me that link? I don't think I saw it. The one you referred to a few minutes ago.
Which link?
Well, when you were just referring to your story from the past and a former podcast.
The one I did about my near-death experience.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think you ever sent me the link.
Yeah, but the reason we were talking about it was Christians that actually discouraged me for witnessing what God blessed me with.
Yes.
Yeah. But so I'm saying that the right people, to get the right energy, you have to be around the right people, because the people create the church, not the building, and it's the word. Yeah.
And I work in a church building every day, so what you just said resonates deeply with me, Victoria. It's all about the people loving people.
Absolutely. So before we go, any other experiences? I know we went over Raven, Medot, Uwharrie. What's your favorite place to go to?
Oh, hands down, Raven. Yeah,
Raven. Beautiful area.
It is. Beautiful country. Piedmont meeting the coastal plain. Yeah. Beautiful.
When you say to people, or what would you say to people if they're a non-believer? What's the one thing you could say if you could just get their attention?
Well, friend, I'm sorry. I wish I could afford the luxury of being a non-believer, but I don't have that luxury anymore. I know that's simplistic, but
no, it says a lot.
Yeah, that's about it, really. Simple as it is. They're real. They exist. Yeah. And your viewers know that. Yeah.
So in closing, can you tell people where to find your YouTube, your Facebook, if they want to share something with you?
Oh, sure. Well, my Facebook, again, it's a private group, but I have a lot of friends on my regular page on Facebook. It's just John Fuquay. YouTube, I pulled all my Bigfoot stuff for now. It's just a few cover songs of Elvis and on there now. It's just simply John Fuquay. I do have another one I just started. I only have like 2 or 3 videos on, more ministry minded, called The Bright Spot. on YouTube, The Bright Spot.
That's your podcast.
No, man, that's not my podcast. This is something new. This is
Okay.
Message of the Day with John Fuquay. And again, this is the brainchild of Chet Hardaway that I met at a chamber event that my wife attended a few months ago.
Yeah.
We connected. So he conceived this thing. And it's on Spotify, but it's on Chet's. Every episode is on his YouTube as well as Spotify. His YouTube is Next Level Media NC. It's all one word. Next Level, Media NC. And he's on Spotify with Chet at the studio. And more to come with that. We were talking earlier today. We're talking about the success of this last one. 40 views in just a couple of days with no promotion. So I'm starting to see the direction I should go with this thing.
People are needing. There's something missing in people's lives today. They need that message. Right. Also, if people want to get in touch with you, they can also email me, and I'll make sure you get the message.
Oh, thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I've admired your program for a long time, and I never really reached out. Just started chatting a little bit on your live feeds. So thank you. I'm honored that you take interest in me. And
please do jump in. Please do jump in anytime you want. We're all in the same circle. David, Matt, Johnny Tucker's. He's a squirrel in the woods, boy. He just is gone. But if they want to get in touch with you, they swamp.
I'm sorry, the swamp.
A swamp kitty. I was yelling.
Oh, your swamp kitty. See, it's the ear hearing. Too much hit with too much infrasound, which I believe I was. Yeah, but anyway.
I totally forgot what I was going to say, sir.
If they want to reach out to you.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that you get it, and maybe we meet it in Raven Rock. Make sure you send me the information for your wife, and we'll promote her business in the description, and I'll try to have all of that in there.
Well, bless you. I'll be glad to do that, and thank you for offering to do that, Victoria. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Wait a minute. At the end of each show, I give someone time to pay tribute.
Right.
Do you have someone?
I do. And I talked to my wife expecting this earlier today. And we really didn't have to have much in exchange. We both agreed. Instead of her, the Lord Jesus Christ. To him be all the glory, praise, and forever and ever. And with thankful hearts to him. So it's to just give honor to our Lord. And I love my wife, don't get me wrong, but it's the common foundation we have, the thread that holds and binds us together is Christ. So that's it. Thank you, Victoria, for allowing me that.
Absolutely. And you reach out anytime you want to. Of course, we're going to be in touch. If we go out Saturday, I'm going to try to do a live feed. I don't know, if it'll get out. But I'll definitely give you an update if we're near Lillington, okay?
Wonderful. Please do. Thank you.
You're welcome, John. And you tell your beautiful wife I said that.
I sure will.
And I'm proud of her.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. I am too. But thank you, Victoria. It means a great deal to us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.